You think you know your parents, right? But through this trip, I finally understood their hidden intentions, and it shattered everything I thought I knew about love and family. I was 28, stuck in a dead-end job in the city, coming home exhausted every night to an empty apartment. The walls felt too quiet, the bed too cold. I'd scroll through old family photos on my phone just to feel something real, anything that washed gray routine. No warmth, no anchor, just the same hollow ache pressing against my ribs every single evening, until last summer, when Mom and Dad insisted we all go on one last family road trip. Just the three of us. Mom said on the phone, her voice soft like it used to be when I was little, before life pulls us any further apart. I almost said no. Work was piling up. My heart was tired. But something in her tone, it tugged at that empty place inside me. I said yes. The morning we loaded the car, the air smelled like fresh asphalt and distant rain. Mom hugged me a little too tightly at the gas station. Her arms wrapped around me, and that familiar lavender scent flooded in, the same one that used to calm me after nightmares when I was small. It wrapped around me like a blanket I didn't know I still needed. I breathed it in without meaning to, my body relaxing against hers before my mind could catch up. Dad stood by the pump, watching us with that quiet smile of his. But his eyes, they lingered on me longer than usual. Not the quick glance of a parent checking if you're okay. Something deeper. He looked away when I noticed, but the moment stretched, heavy and warm like the sun on my skin. That first night we pulled into a roadside motel. Neon lights buzzing faintly outside the window. Mom suggested we share one big room. To save money, she said, laughing lightly as if it was nothing. But her hand brushed my lower back as we walked in, guiding me inside like I was still her little girl. The room had two queen beds pushed close together. The air felt thicker once the door clicked shut. I told myself it was practical. Nothing more, yet when we settled in, the three of us lying there in the dark, their breathing steady on either side of me, something shifted. A polite Aldent name. Their closeness after years of living so far apart. It felt like emotional relief I'd been starving for without realizing. My chest tightened. I forgot how to breathe normally for a second. Day 2 on the scenic highway, sunlight flickering through the trees. Dad passed me the map, and his hand brushed mine. Calloused from years of work. Instead of pulling away, I let it stay there a second longer. The contact sent a small spark up my arm. I stared out the window, pretending to watch the mountains, but my pulse was already racing. Mom kept playing our old family playlist on the car stereo. That one soft acoustic song about homecoming filled the space between us, the gentle guitar notes wrapping around my heart like an old memory coming back to life. She sang along under her breath, her voice low and familiar. I told myself it was just nostalgia making my heart race like this. Just the road, the music, the way the car felt like a small safe world. But the warmth of their presence, it seeped into me. After all those lonely nights in the city, it felt like coming up for air. I let my head rest against the seat, eyes half closed, letting the feeling wash over me, their voices mixing with the song. The faint scent of Dad's cologne mixing with Mom's lavender. Everything so close, too close, and yet I didn't move away. I told myself it was innocent, just a trip to reconnect. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered that something was already changing between us. The way Mom's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror a little too long. The way Dad's fingers tapped the steering wheel in rhythm with the music, close enough that I could feel the heat from his arm. That night at the motel again, the confusion mixed with an unexpected pull toward their closeness grew stronger. I lay there listening to their breathing, my own breath catching every time one of them shifted. The almost moment hung in the air. Nothing happened, but everything felt possible. And I couldn't stop wondering why it felt so good to let it. By the time we reached the mountain cabin that evening, the air had cooled, carrying the sharp scent of pine and damp earth after a brief rain. Mom insisted on a group hug right there in the doorway, her arms pulling us all in tight. Her soft sweater pressed against my chest, the wool warm from her body heat, that familiar lavender scent flooding deeper now, mixing with the wood smoke from the fireplace inside. "We've missed you so much, honey," she whispered against my hair, her breath warm and steady. The hug lasted longer than it should have, her hand rubbing slow circles on my back. felt every inch of contact, the way her body molded close. Soft and yielding, my skin tingled under the fabric, a strange electricity I tried to ignore. Dad's arm came around us both. Solid and encompassing, his cologne faint but grounding. I told myself it was just family bonding. They were getting older, and I had been so distant, always too busy with my empty city life. It felt good to finally give into that comfort, to let myself sink into it without overthinking. I rationalized every second of it. After years of coming home to silence, this closeness was harmless, just overdue affection. Nothing more, yet when we finally pulled apart, my pulse hadn't slowed. The cabin felt smaller somehow, the wooden beams overhead closing in like a secret kept between us. Late that night, sleep wouldn't come. The bed in my room felt too empty, the quiet too loud with all the thoughts swirling. I slipped out and into their room just to talk, the floorboards creaking softly under my feet. They made space without question, the sheets still warm from their bodies. Dad's steady breathing filled the dark on one side, deep and rhythmic. Mom's gentle hand found my arm, her fingers tracing light patterns that sent tiny waves of heat through me. This is Ron, they're my parents, the thought flickered in my mind like a distant warning light. But the loneliness that had carved a hollow place inside me for years whispered back, they're the only ones who truly understand you. Who have always been there, even when I pushed them away. The moral flicker dimmed as I stayed, letting their warmth chase away the void that had grown so vast in the city. Mom shifted closer, her knee brushing mine under the covers, the contact innocent yet charged. I forgot how to breathe normally again, each inhale pulling in their combined scents, lavender and cologne and something deeper, like safety wrapped in forbidden gravity. I lay there caught between the ache of needing to leave and the pull of staying. Their presence felt like gravity drawing me down into a place where the rules blurred. Every small movement, the rustle of sheets, the soft sigh from Dad made my heart stutter. I convinced myself it was healing, just talking in the dark like we used to when I was small. But my body knew better, trembling with an awareness I couldn't name. On the third day at the lake, the sun glinted off the water like scattered diamonds, the air thick with the promise of summer heat. Boundaries dissolved during that private's whim, the kind where no one else was around for miles. We waded in together, the cool water lapping at our skin, a sharp contrast to the warmth building underneath. Their touches turned deliberate under the surface, fingers grazing my arm, then my waist tracing slope as that left trails of heat even in the chill. Eyes met across the gentle ripples, heavy with unspoken hunger that made my throat tighten. This trip is healing us all, Mom said softly, her voice carrying over the water like a confession. Her hand lingered on my shoulder, thumb brushing a spot that made me shiver despite the sun. Dad's gaze held mine a beat too long, the water clinging to his skin in ways that pulled my attention. I told myself it was for the greater good, mending our fractured family, filling the emotional hole left by all those years of neglect and distance. The water's cool texture against heated skin made resistance feel impossible, like fighting a current that only wanted to carry me closer. I rationalized the indulgence with every breath. This closeness was rare, precious. It wasn't hurting anyone. It was just us reconnecting in ways the outside world could never touch. The hunger in their eyes mirrored the craving it buried for so long, and for once, I let myself surrender to it. The lake held us suspended, the three of us drifting in a private world where every accidental brush felt intentional, every shared glance a promise I wasn't ready to question. Even as the water whispered against us and their warmth drew nearer still, rumors from a distant relative slipped into my phone that evening, the screen lighting up while we sat around the wooden table picking at leftover dinner. Close with you, haven't they? The words sat there like a cold finger tracing my spine. I deleted the message before the second read, heart hammering so loud I was sure they could hear it over the faint crackle of the cabin radio playing that old family playlist on low. The acoustic guitar drifted through the room, soft and familiar, wrapping around us like another layer of secrecy. She caught my eye across the plates, her gaze lingering a beat too long, soft and knowing in the dim lamplight. That ambiguous signal sent a fresh wave of heat through my chest. Not shame exactly, but something sharper, sweeter, that made my fingers tighten around my glass. People won't understand, I told myself, pushing the unease down deep where it couldn't reach the addictive pull of their undivided attention. This was ours, No one else needed to see how their presence filled every empty corner it carried back from the city. The thunderstorm rolled in without warning, heavy clouds swallowing the stars as thunder growled closer. Rain hammered the roof like impatient fingers, trapping us inside the small cabin with nowhere to run. Lightning flashed white across the windows, illuminating the space in sudden bursts. Clothes slipped away in the flickering dark, not rushed, but inevitable, the fabric whispering against skin before pooling on the floor. The rough texture of the cabin blanket brushed against me as we moved beneath it, coarse wool mixing with the lingering lavender from Mom's hair and the warm trace of Dad's cologne that always clung to his shirts. That scent anchored everything, pulling me under like a slow tide I no longer fought. Full indulgence swallowed the last of my hesitation. "I need this," I whispered, voice barely cutting through the rain, while my mind screamed it was pure madness, a line crossed that could never be uncrossed, yet desire one, quiet and fierce, drowning out everything else. Their warmth pressed close on either side, breath sissening with the thunder, each flash of lightning revealing eyes heavy with the same unspoken need that had been building since the first night on the road. Morning light filtered gray through the curtains, soft and forgiving. I woke angled between them, limbs loosely intertwined, the sheet scaring the mingled heat of the night before. Obsession had taken root overnight, blooming wild and undeniable. What have I become? This can't be real love, my conscience wrestled, sharp and accusing in the quiet dawn. But their tender words came soft against my ear, Mom's fingers brushing a stray hair from my face, Dad's steady hand resting warm on my back. They rationalized it with every gentle touch as the deepest bond possible, something pure beneath the surface that the world could never touch. Every sensory trigger pulled me deeper into the loop, the faint lavender still clinging to the pillow, the low hum of that same playlist starting again from the radio, their skin warm and familiar against mine. Ordinary life back in the city seemed unbearable without this, a colorless shadow compared to the vivid gravity holding us here. I lay still, breathing them in, torn between the ache of knowing how wrong it felt and the craving that made leaving impossible. The hunger only grew, quiet and consuming, as another rumble of distant thunder echoed outside, promising the storm wasn't quite over yet. On the final drive home, the highway stretched endless under a flat gray sky, the kind that presses down on your chest and makes every mile feel heavier. Mom sat in the passenger seat, her phone buzzing once against her thigh before she quickly silenced it and slipped it into her bag with a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I kept my gaze on the road, but something cold uncurled in my stomach, a quiet warning I tried to ignore. We stopped at a dusty rest area lined with vending machines and tired picnic tables. While Dad refilled water bottles, I lingered by the car, pretending to stretch my legs. Her phone lay half hidden on the seat where she had left it. The screen lit up again with an unread message preview that caught my eye before I could look away. Years of texts, carefully worded plans. This trip will bring her back to us for good. She's been drifting too far. We need to remind her where she belongs. Reclaim what sours before the world takes her completely. My fingers trembled as I scrolled just enough to see the pattern, the calculated sweetness hidden behind every family bonding excuse they defed me since the first hug at the gas station. It wasn't healing. It was possess and rest up as love, a slow, careful trap woven from lavender scent and old songs and the safety it'd been starving for. All those almost moments, the deliberate brushes underwater, the storm-lit surrender, they had been steering me there from the beginning. My breath caught sharp, the ache twisting into something bitter and raw. I felt exposed, small like the 28-year-old who still needed them more than I wanted to admit. Only now the need had been weaponized against me. I set the phone back exactly as I found it and walked to the edge of the lot where gravel crunched under my shoes. The wind carried faint traces of rain from somewhere far off, cool against my flushed cheeks. Inside my chest everything fractured at once, the hunger had let bloom warring with a sudden clear-eyed horror. They weren't just my parents anymore. They were the architects of this quiet gravity that had pulled me under, treating my loneliness like something they could own. Back in the city, the apartment door clicked shut behind me with a finality that echoed too loud in the empty rooms. The walls felt colder than I remembered, the silence thicker. Their call came that same evening, Mom's voice soft and familiar on the line, promising one more trip, just us three, to finish what we started. I stood there frozen, phone pressed to my ear, heart hammering between the pull of that dangerous comfort and the devastating truth staring back at me from the rest-stop shadows. Cut them off and face the void alone again, or answer and sink deeper into the illusion they had so patiently built. The choice sat heavy in my throat, unresolved, a trembling ache that refused to settle. Part of me still craved the way their warmth had filled every cracked corner of my life, even knowing the intention behind it. So tell me, if you discovered your parents' hidden intentions through a trip that broke every boundary, would you walk away, or would you crave that dangerous comfort again? Drop your judgment in the comments. I'm reading everyone. If you want the more explicit details of what really happened in that cabin, subscribe and hit the bell for the full uncensored confession coming next.